Hey YouTube, here's 5 questions answered from the perspective of a single foster adopt dad for prospective single foster adopt parents. I hope you enjoy.
1, 2, 3.
Let's go. So I'm going to cover the top 5 questions that I imagine people would have. I hope at the end of this, though, if you have comments or questions, that you would include those. So obviously, yes, as a single person, you can adopt, male or female. My son also wants to talk some at some point, so maybe we'll do a vlog interviewing him. Number 2, what is the hardest thing about being a single man in the adoption process? And actually, the first thing I'd say is it's probably similar to being a single woman. It's just hard. It's hard to be a foster parent. It's hard to be an adoptive parent. It's hard to be a parent, period, as a single person. But then you add another layer on, which is that these kids are coming from hard places, hard situations, hard places. And even if it's a little kid, that's still going to affect who they are and how they develop. So that requires a lot more training from us, a lot more specialized parenting and support groups and other things that I hope everyone who really gets engaged in foster care and adoption really looks into those, because those are super helpful, have been very helpful to me. Okay, the second part of this is it depends on your location. So one of the hard things about being a single man in the adoption process is that depending on where you live, you might come across some biases. Those are definitely there. Now, I will say that I've done foster care in Ohio and in California in 2 relatively conservative counties, and the social workers have been super accepting, super warm, really excited to see a single foster dad, and that's been great. Like, love that. However, there are other folks who are not that way at all. Those tend to be either supervisors or people who place kids. I'm finding more of those folks are a little biased. I think some of that we'll talk about in a minute, but some of that is that the social workers see the real need for single men and for single women out there for foster care and adoption, and the other people may not see that as clearly, like they aren't quite on the same front line the other folks are on. So there are kids out there who can only be placed really with men. Or there are kids out there who can really only be placed with women. So they have issues from this intense trauma that someone from the other gender has created in their lives, has acted out upon them. And because of that trauma, they can't be parented by someone who's the same gender. It just doesn't work. And so there's a real need for us, for people who are willing to do foster care as singles, but know that you're probably going to find bias throughout the system. I had bias with a trainer who was like, oh, like you're a single man doing this. And I've had bias from a social worker supervisor, and bias certainly from a lot of placement folks who try to place kids and are like, oh, no, you know that you're the bottom of the barrel. We would always choose a couple over a single person, no matter what the circumstance. I've had people say that. So there's definitely some bias, but there's also folks who are very, very excited to see you. So you just have to kind of get past the bias. And I will say, like, if you're in an agency where there's a supervisor or someone who does not approve of single people doing foster care or adoption, then switch. And you have that option, which is great. You can go to a county if you were with a private agency, or to another private agency. You can go from a county to a private agency. You can switch. And I recommend you do if you keep running into bias, because somewhere out there, there's an agency or a county that would be so excited to have you as a single person. The third thing, your support system needs to be in alignment, or you need to create a support system that will be in alignment with your desire to adopt or to foster. I've been so lucky In fact, when I told my parents that I was going to do foster care, they're like, it's about time. When I told my brother, he's like, that's awesome. You should really look at getting someone who's not white. Like that was his response. I have a very supportive community around me that way. And then folks in my churches, both here and in California, were super supportive and on board, and even like, oh, can the kids come over and I'll teach them how to bake and do other things? Super supportive, super excellent. I highly recommend that you find a community that will be supportive of you if you don't already have a community. Build that up the best way you can. For me, church has been a huge part of that, but I know a lot of folks will need to look elsewhere, and I recommend you do. The other thing about a support system is support groups. Like there's online support groups now. This is being filmed during COVID. And so, when we're all sheltering and whatever as much as we can. And so I'm doing a Zoom support group on Friday nights. It is excellent. I highly recommend you do something like that as well. You just need that support. Again, these are kids that are coming from hard places. Even if you were a couple, I would recommend being in a support group because it's going to get tough. Number 3, are there stipulations on what children I can foster or adopt? Yeah. Oh, there really are. There are a lot of stipulations. And you know what? The funny thing is, you are going to be the one who creates most of those, who says, no, I can't take kids who do this or that or have this issue. For example, social workers would be happy to place kids with me who have appointments every single day of the week. They would love to do that. However, I work full time, and there's just no way that would be practical or work for my life. So I have to say no to those phone calls. That's a stipulation. I can't take a kid who has appointments all the time. The other one, again, is there are some kids that can't be with a man. There are some kids that really can't be with a woman until they've experienced some healing. They're just not really ready for that, and so that's a stipulation. There's other ones out there as well, based on who you are, your history, your experiences. But there's behaviors, there's things that you might be awesome with. I have this great friend that's this awesome with certain behaviors that I just couldn't. I just couldn't, right? And she wouldn't take some of the behaviors maybe that I would be willing to accept and work with those kids and help them heal through those behaviors. It's just the way it is. Those are our stipulations on who we take. Number 4, what do I do about daycare or childcare? Well, a lot of the kids who come in, especially if it's adoptive placements you're looking for, are going to be older kids, like 8 and over. And those kids will be involved in school. And so mostly you're looking for after school care. Maybe someone in your support system can help you out. I know in our small groups, our foster support groups, there's always people asking, and often there are other foster families who are like, okay, well, I'm already babysitting 2 foster kids from 3 o'clock till 5 o'clock, I might as well take on one more. Some agencies and states offer some financial assistance for daycare. I've heard, especially during COVID, that people have had some issues with this, but generally speaking, there are agencies, there are counties that provide some assistance. Check with yours and see if they're part of that. The other thing is Head Start tends to prioritize foster kids. So if you're in an area where there's Head Start, then that for a preschool is a real possibility for free childcare, at least for some of the time. Now, there's not a Head Start in the area I live in, and there's not, they're not everywhere, but if there happens to be one where you are, then that might be a real possibility. The last thing I'm going to say is support system. Maybe there's someone in your family who can help out. Maybe there's someone in your support group who can help out. Just look around, try and find someone you would trust with your kids. All of those are acceptable. You can be a working parent. You absolutely can, and you can do foster care. It's just hard, especially with all the appointments and things that we have. There are more appointments. There are more things that go into caring for a child from a hard place. There's counseling, there's therapies, there's things that you wouldn't normally have to consider, and now suddenly you do. Number 5, is my living situation okay? Whatever your living situation is, Is it okay? Well, the first thing is apartments are okay. A lot of folks, that's one of the big questions coming in. Can I live in an apartment and do this? Yes, you can. Now it's got to be safe and you've got to have space for a kid. It's got to be clean and orderly enough. Not like perfect clean, but like you can't have like roaches crawling around or anything disgusting. But it's got to be in good shape. It's got to be a safe place. That's true with a house too. It needs to be in good shape. It needs to be a safe place for whatever child you plan to take. Now, the second part is you must be able to cover your own costs and make payments. Whether you're in an apartment or a home, you've got to provide for yourself. Whatever reimbursement you get for foster care is not going to cover you. It's just not. Especially if you're a parent who really invests in kids. Often what I found for foster care is kids they come into the system with very little, and you've got to buy them shoes and clothes and jackets, and you've got to set up a room, or you want to. If you're going to do a good job, which I hope you are, you're going to want to set up their room, you're going to want to do all these things, and that costs money. It takes time and it costs money. And so reimbursements do not give you anything extra. They don't. Not if you're really providing for the kid well. You're not going to make money off of foster care. Sorry if I'm bursting your bubble, but hopefully you're not here for the money part anyway. And the next question I imagine some people have is, can other folks live with us? Well, like my parents, grandma and grandpa, live with my family. They have built an apartment in our walkout basement. It's great. Like now they asked us a lot of questions during the home study to see that we got along okay and we could settle arguments amongst ourselves okay. Like they went through all of that, and it's great for us. It really works. For some families, that would not be a good thing. But for us, it's wonderful. They must pass background checks, and some agencies require a physical for every adult in the household, so they might have to go see a doctor. If they're willing to do those things, great. That works out. Well, folks, I hope that you have gotten something out of this. Hopefully, some of this information has been helpful to you. I hope it's been encouraging for those of you thinking about doing foster care. I love this journey. Like, it's been so hard, but so good. And I love my kids, cuddling up with them, watching movies on Friday night, movie night in our house. Like I just really enjoy spending time with them and enjoy them. And I hope that if you feel called to this, and it is a calling, not everyone is built to do foster care and adoption, but if you feel called to adopt from the foster care system or just to provide foster care, I hope that you understand there's a huge need for you. It might not always feel like it, but there really is. That this is a good thing to do. If you have any other questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below, or you can send me an email. I look forward to answering those. My kid probably would love to have some questions or comments for him too, but thank you so much for your time. And now it's time for me to go dad.